Back to The Atlantic, which has recently become very fertile soil for the daily cancellation. Last week, we had to cancel a woman who wrote an article for the publication trying to explain why nobody should care about a woman's body count. And today, we have a not entirely unrelated subject, this time written by a woman named Annie Lowry. And the headline poses a question, which is this: is single parenthood the problem? Now, if I were the author, the text of the article would be very short. In fact, it would be one word, and the answer would be yes. Single parenthood is the problem, or it is at least a problem, a very big one. But Lowry has more to say than that, and not everything she says is wrong. She begins, quote, "The most heavily anticipated economics book of the year makes a radical argument. Having married parents is good for kids." I know, it seems like a joke, right? Of course, having two involved parents living in a stable home together is good for kids. Anyone who has considered having children with a partner or was ever a child themselves must know that. But for years, academics studying poverty, mobility, and family structures have avoided that self-evident truth. The economist Melissa Kearney writes in The Two-Parent Privilege, released this week, "And while the wonks avoided the topic, the rise of single-parent households in America exacerbated inequality and contributed to astonishingly high rates of child poverty." Now, this part is all true, of course, but there's much more to say. In fact, this is the whole story right here. It would at least make for a more interesting article in The Atlantic, I would think. Everyone knows it's better for kids to be raised by two parents than by one. That's how things are naturally set up. Every child has two biological parents. No child has ever had one or three, only two, which is a pretty good indication that they are supposed to be raised by two. And those two, just to be clear, are a man and a woman. This is the most natural thing. Or I should say, it's nature in its elevated, civilized state. Now, in the animal kingdom, in most cases, babies are conceived, the father runs off after copulation, and the babies are born and they're raised only by their mothers and usually only for a short time before they're out on their own. So single parenthood becoming more common and accepted in human society is a sign that society is devolving. People are behaving more like cats and crocodiles than human beings. Single parenthood it's literally animalistic. It's what you find in the animal kingdom. It's a family arrangement that you can find in the forest or in the jungle or out on the Serengeti. It's not meant for human society. We are not beasts. We are people. And we're supposed to raise our children, both parents, father and mother. Now, obviously, we're speaking here on the broad societal level. Society devolves and it becomes more animalistic when it accepts and promotes single parenthood as a positive good, as equal to the nuclear family, or even better than it. Now, that isn't to say that, obviously, every single parent themselves has done something wrong necessarily. If a child is raised by one parent because the other parent died, for example, then that's a situation where you have no choice but to make do, and those parents deserve a lot of credit and a lot of respect. The same for a situation where a child is raised by one parent because the other abandoned the family. The one who is left now the one who left the family and abandoned the family is acting like an animal. The one who is left is doing the best they can to compensate. The trouble is that many kids are being raised in single-parent households because both parents are irresponsible and selfish, or because the single parent chose to break up the family for no good reason. This is why the universal celebration of single moms, as if they're all victims put in a difficult spot through no fault of their own, has always been horribly misguided. Now, some of them are victims who are put in a difficult spot through no fault of their own, but certainly not all. And probably not the majority. But as the author notes, the so-called experts, the academics, the economists, the college professors, the politicians, and so on, have for many years ignored or outright denied these basic realities. It's just one of the great many basic realities that these people have tried to cover up or distract us from. They tie themselves into pretzels to try and explain why it's good, actually, for kids to have only one parent raising them instead of two. They try desperately to pretend that all family arrangements are equally valid, equally good, equally likely to lead to well-adjusted children who can thrive as functional adults in society. On this topic, as on so many other topics, the experts use their alleged expertise to lead society deeper into confusion and self-destruction. And now they have the gall to complain that people no longer trust the expert class. Well, how can we trust them? They've only been horrendously wrong about everything my entire life. They've only tried to tear human civilization apart at the seams. Other than that, they've earned our trust. And we could spend longer analyzing all this, but the author moves on and we get to this part. Quote, But it is worth asking, what good comes of pointing out that many people could use a cohabitating partner and that many kids could use a second involved parent? Kearney has written an important, careful book on a topic that is an elephant in the room, as she puts it. Still, I'm not sure anyone has any idea what to do with the elephant. Kearney's own research and the research of other scholars convinced her that the rise of single parenthood was an important and overlooked social phenomenon, a key to understanding the country's low rates of mobility and high rates of poverty. Well, I have to say, no, it was not overlooked. Okay, the problem of single parenthood was not overlooked. It was overlooked by The Atlantic, perhaps, and by the rest of the mass media, and by those experts we talked about a moment ago. But some people, the social conservatives specifically, we've been talking about this and warning about it for decades. Okay, it wasn't overlooked by us. It's just that we have been shouted down and ignored for decades. Now the people who ignored us are slowly but surely coming around to the realization that we were right about this, like we are right about literally everything. Okay, the social conservatives have been right about every cultural issue since forever. We've been right about everything. We are always right, always. It's just that, and eventually on every topic, eventually the experts come around and they say, I think maybe it should be this way instead. But they won't acknowledge that we were right. They always come around to the realization that we were right, but they never say, you were right. Because they want to continue to demonize the very people who arrived at the conclusions 50 years ago that they're just arriving at now. In any case, the article continues laying out more of the economic and social problems that come with single parenthood, and most of what it says, again, is correct. But then we get to the final paragraph, which says this, quote, "The real elephant in the room, I think, is that the United States doesn't want to contemplate, let alone create, a policy infrastructure that supports single parenthood. It doesn't want to make sure that kids thrive with a single earner in the home. It won't do this, even though it seems obvious that a large share of children are going to grow up with one parent going forward, and even though we aren't realistically going to increase the marriage rate among lower income Americans. We don't want to build a society where children are seen as a collective gift and a collective responsibility. It's not single parenthood that's failing these kids. We all are." No, it's single parenthood that's failing them. We aren't failing the kids, okay? What's this we stuff? Speak for yourself. I can speak for myself at least, because we includes me, and I'm not failing them. If there's a child in a single parent home across the street because the mom had sex with some random guy outside of marriage and they both had no interest in marrying in order to create a stable home for that child, then that child has been failed, but not by me. If he's in a single parent home because the mom got bored with her marriage and decided to rip the family apart so that she could go off and find herself or whatever, then again, the child has been failed, but not by me. And if he's in a single parent home because the dad is a deadbeat who ran out on the family, then once again, that child has been failed, but not by me. And not by you, and not by us, and not by we. The child's mother failed him, or his father failed him, or in most cases, they both failed him. 100% of the failure comes from some combination of the mom and the dad. For most homeowners, window replacement isn't something they've done before, and for many, it isn't something they want to do, but rather something they have to do. If you've put off replacing windows in your home because it's too expensive, I have great news. You can now get a free in-home window consultation and a free price quote from Renewal by Andersen. Renewal by Andersen's signature service is committed to giving you the best customer experience possible through the perfect combination of the best people in the industry, a superior process, and an exclusive product. Right now, Renewal by Andersen is offering a free in-home or virtual consultation on durable, quality, affordable windows or patio doors for $0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. Text Walsh to 200-300 for your free consultation to save $375 off every window and $750 off every door. These savings won't last long, so be sure to check it out by texting Walsh to 200-300. That's Walsh to 200-300. Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates apply. Reply stop to opt out. Go to windowappointmentnow.com for full offer details. Now, as always, the left wants to remove personal responsibility from this conversation and from every conversation, but you can't. Because ultimately, there is no solution to the single parent problem outside of adults making better choices. If they will not make better choices, then nothing will get better. That's the reality. All we can do If the rate and volume of bad choices doesn't change, then all we can do is try our best to deal with the mess that these selfish jerks are creating. And some of that will involve policy changes, yes, but the policies should not be tailored to support single parenthood. Rather, the policy should encourage and promote marriage and two-parent households. Okay, we've done more than enough to support single parenthood, too much, in fact. We need to support two-parent households in order to eventually have fewer of the kinds of households that are creating all of these problems. Are children a collective gift? Sure. Are they a collective responsibility? I mean, yeah, in a broad sense, but there is a hierarchy of responsibility for each individual. And your responsibility starts closest to you and it branches out from there. This means the first responsibility you have is to your own family, your own children. You cannot go out and be reckless and irresponsible and then expect society to take care of you and your kids, because society is comprised of individuals. And each individual has a list of priorities, and neither you or your children will ever be at the top of it. That's not because they're selfish, it's because they have their priorities straight. And they have to take care of their own families first. That's how it's set up. So it's up to you first and foremost to make sure that your children have what they need. And what they need first and foremost is a mom and a dad in the home. Society can't provide that, and the government can't provide it. Only you can. And that has to be the first step. Annie Lowrey of The Atlantic seems to get close to this realization, but she doesn't make it all the way, because these people never do. And for that reason, she is today canceled. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out The Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.